All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. We finally have some action on Bitcoin and the altcoin market after a few pretty painful weeks in terms of sideways chop in the market. But altcoins are now finally starting to actually break out. You can see others BTC here is on a really strong run, and you can also see that Total 3 is on the verge of a big breakout. So are these signals that we are about to get a big altcoin rotation? That's something that we're going to speak about in today's video. I'll also be giving you an update of some of my positioning, going through some of the top altcoins in the market and more. So it's going to be an alpha pack show after a couple of days of not uploading here on the channel, but we're back to daily uploads now. I was just traveling for a little bit. So let's get into things here. Firstly, let's take a look at Bitcoin, because I've been speaking about this descending channel for the last few weeks, and we actually started to break above it at the end of last week, which I highlighted and emphasized how it was very important that we actually maintained this level here, and we've actually pushed back up into the mid-range resistance. So it is important to note that at the time of recording this video, we are into resistance on Bitcoin, but this looks more constructive in terms of price action. I'll show you why. You can see on the 4-hour how we were just making lower lows and lower lows and lower lows from August 16th all the way until September 2nd. Since September 2nd, we've started to make an uptrend with higher lows. So to me, on the low time frame, H1 and H4, this does look like a momentum reversal. Obviously, getting past this pivot point at the 13.5 level remains really, really important for Bitcoin. What we'll get into in a couple of minutes here is that altcoins, despite Bitcoin heading into resistance, are actually showing very strong reversal signs. And there are some alts in the market that have gone up 10, 20, 30%. One coin I'm going to speak about today has actually doubled since my last buy, which is absolutely insane. That happened just this week alone. I think a lot of the strength for Bitcoin and the crypto market in general is actually off the back of this gold rally. Now, I said this last week, even when Bitcoin was looking weak. I did expect Bitcoin to reverse and actually attack new highs later in the year or early next year, due to the fact that gold has been on a massive run. And typically, when gold runs really hard, Bitcoin tends to follow. If you guys want to know what the situation is right now with gold, I think this tweet from Don Alt actually sums it up quite well. He says, "It's funny how everyone has a little doomer in their head right now, rightfully telling them to de-risk because everything is kind of effed. But then at the same time, you realize de-risking into the dollar or euro might actually be the riskier choice. The lower the price, the more certain people become of the entire system collapsing. And the higher the price, the more certain people become of the up forever mentality. All while prices move in between those bands, back and forth, making people too dumb to do anything based on low time frame volatility. Understandable but ill-advised. Pick your poison and stick with it, or watch your net worth disappear." Quite dramatic, but I think the point I want to highlight from this post is this. De-risking into dollars, I think a lot of people are viewing as quite risky right now, given, how the dollar's been dropping and how currency's being debased and how you have obviously gold and stocks rallying. And this is very evident because when people are uncertain about where to park their money, when they're uncertain about the global economy, gold is typically a safe haven. And that's why we've seen gold performing really well, because high net worth individuals, funds, and even nations, they don't know where to put their money. They don't necessarily trust putting their money into the US dollar, at least not in the current macro climate. So they see gold as a better option. And that's also been something that's propped up equities. So I think overall, this does hold crypto in good stead, because where else are you going to put your money? But as I said in this tweet here, I actually think Bitcoin is a better buy here than gold. I said this on September 6th, because I think typically when gold leads, Bitcoin plays catch up. And I think you're seeing a bit of a front running at the moment, albeit I want to pour a little bit of water on the flames and just tell you that we are heading into resistance. This very well might break today, but typically you'll want to wait for confirmation, specifically on the H4 time frame and the 1-day time frame right now. This is the time frame where this range structure has been adhered to the best. Ansem came out a few days ago and said, "Gut says we're topped in the market." And I actually had a counterpoint that I shared on X where I said, look, Gut says we've topped, but head can't rationalize why that would be probabilistic with gold rocketing and equities still making new highs. Typically, crypto only tops once the business cycle is over. This time could be different, but I have a hard time betting against the macro trend. And I guess that is the bottom line behind why I think, Bitcoin and Ethereum and overall the crypto market still has room to run, because at the end of the day, every single crypto top has happened once the business cycle has put in its top. So stocks start to make lower highs. The rate cut cycle has changed and it's starting to shift, into a rate hike cycle. We're actually heading towards the end of that now with rate cuts, but that end period is typically the most explosive period for the market. So I'm not going to try and front run this. I could be wrong. As I said, with the whole gut says we've topped thing, I was replying to Anthem here. There is a genuine case on Bitcoin, especially on the daily chart, that it does look a little bit toppy. But given the fact that the business cycle is where it is, makes me wary to bet against the trend. And ultimately, in the crypto market, you are simply taking a probabilistic view of the market and you are positioning based on whether you think you have a plus EV or a minus expected value edge in the market. And I do think balance of probabilities, we keep going up because I want to follow the general macro cycle. Now let's talk about altcoins and what's actually happening, because the past 48 hours has been quite interesting. You've had Bitcoin go up a little bit, but you've actually had dominance going down, and you've had others, BTC, also pumping, and you've had Total 3 pumping. Alts versus ETH have also been going up. So we've seen a front running of sorts where prior to FOMC, people are actually preferring to position in alts because they know they have more reflexivity to the upside than going into Bitcoin and Ethereum. What we're also seeing is we're seeing a little bit of a treasury company front running. We're going to speak about a couple of the treasury company speculative vehicles in a couple of minutes here. And there's been a lot of hype as to what the next DAT is. And this is a narrative that you're actually seeing prop up alts. Ultimately, speculation in the altcoin market is a good thing because that keeps at least some sort of flow of bidding, because people are going to bid on the next coin they think will get an ETF, because people will bid on the next coin they think will get a treasury company or an ETF. And that's why we saw that rotation, from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Solana. Of course, at some point it can reset and, you can have a Bitcoin run again where people get excited and then back to Ethereum, then back to alts. But right now we do seem to be in that final phase where we're seeing now speculation beyond Ethereum, which is why ETH's kind of stalled out a little bit, and some of the alts actually look really strong, because I think that narrative is more appealing for the market right now. So just looking at a few of the metrics here. Firstly, Bitcoin dominance. This looks like it wants to at least sweep the lows at 57.6%. I still do think we get a push up back to the noodle here on the daily, but this looks like a lower high. So only natural for us to expect some sort of reaction here. Then maybe you could shift some altcoins into Bitcoin potentially. If we do flush this level, wait for a deviation reclaim and try and play some sort of reversal trade. Of course, then it will, head back into resistance again. And that's probably when you shift into alts. So something I'm doing at the moment is just pair trading alts versus Bitcoin, using dominance and then using how alts look on the specific Bitcoin chart when it comes to actual execution. That is a tip for you. Another chart that I think is worth paying attention to is the others BTC chart. This is reversed. You can see here the daily noodle, which we were, rejecting off for a long time. We now actually flipped. This is something I highlighted a few weeks ago, and we have now started an official reversal. This is a very nice uptrend. So theoretically, every time alts have dipped, you should be putting more Bitcoin or potentially stables into alts, given the fact that we are still in an uptrend. And I think this uptrend, if we go into the weekly chart, has enough strength to at least take us here to a breakout to this orange line, which would still be quite a, decent move on alts. That would represent a 12% move versus Bitcoin. The last 12% move obviously was quite big for altcoins. So I think we push up into this level, and then I think it's going to be very important to see whether we can actually clear that level, because back in December last year and even earlier in 2024, we actually failed to break that level. So I want to see what the reaction is in this zone, but I do think given the fact we are seeing strong volume into the weekly here and also into the daily, gives me some confidence that this trend won't reverse just yet. And also looking at Total 3, you can see on the weekly chart here, we are on the precipice of a big breakout. And remember, Total 3 actually excludes Bitcoin and Ethereum. So we're just looking at the altcoin index here, and this would obviously be a big breakout. Now, we are into resistance, so maybe aping into resistance isn't the greatest idea ever. I will go through some specific altcoin charts later in the video, but it is important to note that we are in a macro uptrend, and if this did break, this could be quite a quick and explosive move for alts. So I think we've been prepping on the channel quite a while for this, but I just want to make you aware of the fact we are close to a breakout. And speaking of prepping on the channel, I did tell you guys that I was expecting a rally to happen at some point in September 5 days ago. The title of the video was Why Everyone is Wrong About Crypto in September. I was seeing a lot of bearish posts. Even a few days ago, I was arguing with people about being bearish on the timeline, and now this week we are starting to really look up for altcoins. I mean, if you look at the altcoin prices here, you can see a lot of these alts are actually making new monthly highs. So I did warn you guys a few days ago that September may actually end up being a better month than people think, because everyone else thinks it's going to be bearish. So hopefully you did watch that video and I held you in good stead for this next period in the market. All right, now what I want to do is I want to go through the altcoin best performers, take a look at some of their charts. And I also want to talk about what could potentially move next and how I am positioning. I also want to go through like a nice core portfolio that maybe you could look at holding for Q4, or at least basing your thinking around trading and positioning around. Before I get into that, I want to announce something new that I'm going to be doing. So I want to interact more with you guys here because I don't do live streams that often anymore. I want a format where I can actually interact, answer your questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new series here. Every single video, I'm going to answer a question. If I pick your question and I answer it on the show, you're going to get $500 sent to your wallet. All you need to do is comment, and you can start today because in tomorrow's video, I'm going to answer my first comment. You just have to comment on this video, any question you want. What do you think of Bitcoin? What do you think of this altcoin? What do you think of anything you want to ask it in the comments below. It can even be a statement. If I think it's a compelling or interesting statement, that can also qualify. Just leave a comment. I'll answer in tomorrow's video. We're going to do this every day, and you're going to win $500 if you're selected. So take a shot, ask something. You may win $500, but you need to watch tomorrow's video to see if you won, because if I do pick your comment, you need to come back to this video that you commented on, and you need to leave your wallet in the reply thread under your comment. Actually post your wallet. I'll double check it corresponds with your username if you're selected, and you will be notified in tomorrow's video. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that if you do leave a comment below to actually see if you've won. And I'll be doing it at some point throughout the video, probably within the middle of the video tomorrow. So yeah, comment. I get to interact with you guys. You guys can win some money. It's a win-win, and should be a fun little series that we can do here on the channel every single video. All right, now getting into the altcoin overview, there are a few outperformers. So look, I'm not saying the majority of the market's absolutely skyrocketed, but what you can see is you can see they've upticked. If you look at the right side here, these are the weekly charts. You can see we have made new weekly highs on pretty much any alt that is solid fundamentally. So a lot of the alts we've been speaking about on this channel, I've talked about Athena a lot, I've talked about PENGU, I've talked about Hyperliquid. A lot of this stuff is in the top fraction of altcoins, and the reason why you're seeing this is because the strong stuff is running. People want to be positioned in the alts with relative strength. An altcoin that I actually spoke about on the channel on the 15th of June, I don't know if you could see here, but the price was 96 cents when I did this video, was Worldcoin. I did a full deep dive, and you guys should still watch this, by the way. I'll leave it in the description below because I still think it's relevant. I did a full deep dive on Worldcoin, and I announced why this was my second biggest AI holding. What we've actually seen since this video, and actually in the last few days, is a 2x in price as it's gone on a massive run and a massive breakout through this level, which I had on my chart, because it's getting DAT speculation. So people think they might potentially announce, there's whispers around a Worldcoin DAT announcement, which is clearly being front run by the market. So you can see this is very much a market where DATs are the meta. If people think a DAT is going to be launched, which is basically going to acquire through a vehicle tokens, people are front running this, and that's why you're seeing such a big explosion on the chart. Luckily, if you did watch this video, you should be positioned or at least aware of Worldcoin. I went through the entire moat, investment framework. I still actually think it does have upside. Obviously, buying after a huge pump probably isn't the ideal way to go, but if you do want a framework and a deep dive, I'll leave that in the description below if you want to watch that video. So Worldcoin is one token that's doing really well. Some other tokens that are doing really well are Athena, PENGU, Hyperliquid. Actually, a few days ago, even before this pump, as you can see on the 6th of September, I did a tweet. I said, Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, ENA, MNT, pump, hype, not a bad core portfolio for Q4. Now, I actually have a portfolio video coming very soon. I think it's going to be on my second channel, Crypto Edge. But spoiler alert, some of these tokens are in there because I think for me, this is a decent portfolio to frame your thinking around. Now, obviously, I hold more tokens than this, right? I split my portfolio into two baskets. 80%, which is core portfolio. It's these tokens plus a couple of others. And then 20%, which is more of my speculative portfolio. That's where I bet on the riskier stuff, and I'm more willing to lose money on that 20%. But, that gives me some genuine dart throws at hitting some 10x's. However, as a core portfolio, I think Bitcoin still has upside. I think ETH still makes new highs. Solana looks really good. ENA is very strong. I've been holding that for a while, and that's great. MNT, I shared on the channel, been holding that. It's almost up at 2x now, which is great. Pump is a position that I recently re-added because I think it has the right fundamentals with its revenue and its relative revenue to market cap versus Hyperliquid looking quite strong. So I think there's a real narrative right now around revenue generating protocols, which is why Pump and Hype are performing so well. And of course, Hype has been a staple in my portfolio. You guys will know since I did the deep dive. at $38. It's performed quite well. It's up to 54 now, and we've had multiple dips to get on board the hype train. So this one's been great. I still think hype, as I said in that video, can go to $70 to $80. It's become quite a popular asset. I've had a lot of retail friends actually asking me about hype. So it is very popular, and the current run, if you guys want to know the fundamentals, which Fabian shared in the Mars High Club, is being triggered by a recent announcement that Hype is going to be issuing their own stablecoin, USDH, which could be, I think, a massive growth vertical for the hyperliquid business, as, you know, stablecoins are probably the hottest and biggest and most adopted narrative in crypto with genuine PMF right now. So I think they can actually grow quite quickly given the fact they have so many users, and they can start shifting the pairs over from USDC to their stablecoin. Market clearly liked this announcement, and momentum has continued into the rest of the week. ENA, which is one that, you know, we have this buy zone here, and this red zone has been a great one. I spoke about this many times on the dip. I was accumulating ENA. I'm still in a position. I don't have my exchange logged into right now, but I actually added to my long position. I'll share that tomorrow or the day after. It's printing. The position's doing really, really well. I stuck fat in my PENGU and my ENA positions, even though, you know, they look really worrying a couple of days ago, and, you know, now they're well back into profit. So that's good. That's sometimes why you just need conviction and to stick by your guns in this market. But ENA has this level at the 8.5 level to break. So once again, it's heading into resistance. You could look at a breakout trade if you missed. If not, maybe look at another dip. Try my best to, you know, get you guys into this one. But if you haven't already, I would either wait for a dip back down to this level here, or I would wait for a breakout, and then I would see if you can potentially get a breakout trade if the right setup presents on the lower time frames. And Fabian, who's just crushing it with his discourse in the Mars High Club, attributed the recent Athena rally to the $530 million raise by Stablecoin X. Actually, not just attributed, because he posted this a couple of days ago, so actually before the big pump, but this was the news that broke, that they're basically continuing to purchase ENA for the next 6 to 8 weeks. So they have all this money being used for buybacks, which is obviously pushing up the token. It's also very, I think, narrative-wise aligned with the market right now, given the fact that funding rates are climbing up, which ENA benefits from, as well as the stablecoin narrative being hot. Obviously, ENA benefits from that because they have one of the biggest stablecoins in crypto. There's this meme in the Asian markets, basically translated, Luna without a crash. Now, that makes me scared saying that, but that's basically the narrative, that ENA is Luna without a crash, but basically a better version of Luna. I don't think you should count your chickens before they hatch, but it is basically what, you know, the market needed, a more decentralized stablecoin, and their protocol is quite smart, the way they manage their APRs around funding. Very, very smart tokenomics, and one of the reasons why I've been bullish on it, aside from relative strength. MNT is another one. You guys will remember this range. I had many calls in this range low, like around 56 to 60 cents, almost a 3x up at one point. This has started to look nice again, so we had a nice pivot off the daily, giving people a chance to enter. I did share that last week, so hopefully you got some entries on that. MNT I continue to be bullish on, just given the fact that they are aligning so closely with Bybit's ecosystem. Like, look, Binance has a token, BNB, OKX has a token, OKB. Although MNT isn't the official Bybit token, it's as good as they come, because you can get discounts on trading fees if you hold the token, stake the token. You can get access to certain tokens or launch pool initiatives if you hold and stake the token. All sorts of rewards are given to people in MNT. So they're basically almost treating it as the de facto token without saying it. And it's very clear that they, and this is good report on Delphi that dived into that they are basically making it their token. And it makes a lot of sense because Coinbase has Base. Base doesn't have a token, but it's a huge chain. So Bybit has Mantle. That's their chain. Obviously, they get all the benefits of having a DeFi chain, but it also has a token which gives them a benefit on their exchange as well. So I think it's a good one because there's a lot of reflexivity in a bullish market. So if you think Q4 will be bullish, then exchanges will obviously do a lot of volume. Bybit's the second biggest exchange. You can't buy into an official Bybit token, but you can buy into MNT, just like you would buy into BNB, and obviously that's gone nuts as Binance has become bigger and bigger and bigger. Then the last chart I want to show you before I wrap up here is, and then I want to just give some thoughts on FOMC, is PENGU. So PENGU's actually started to have a breakout again. I'll share when I get my exchanges loaded the trade update. But this one has given us a nice reclaim entry here. You can see this sweep of these lows, and then we had a reclaim of the H4 and the daily. Didn't give us quite the perfect retest, so I didn't get in on this breakout, but I did buy throughout this zone and continue to ladder into my positions. Now, FOMC, odds are shifting a bit more in the favor of potentially there being a 50 bips cut. Look, I think we probably will get the 25 basis point cut, but it's interesting to see the market shift because at one point, there was a higher probability of no cut than right now's 50 bips probability. So look, obviously 50 would be amazing. It would probably send markets skyrocketing. I think markets baseline is anticipating a 25 basis point cut. However, I think a lot of it does depend on the dot plot and, what Powell actually ends up saying and all of that stuff, which typically impacts things because that will shift the longer time frame view that the market will reprice in the shorter term. So I think before there's certainty of FOMC, the market will still be a little bit jittery. Like we may see a sell-off in the next couple of days after, a big move. And I think although things are looking good structurally, there's usually just a bit of jitteriness or shenanigans, which makes me not want to go crazy into leverage. But then after the event, given the fact that altcoins look structurally quite good right now, that could be the fuel needed to get this proper breakout on the total 3 chart. Last thing I want to announce, and this is very cool that I'm going to be bringing to the show, is gem of the day. So I know a lot of you want low caps and you want a place for me to share low caps. Obviously, I do this in the Mars High Club regularly if you are a member, but I know a lot of you guys on the show want the more degen stuff. So what I'm going to do is from the Mars High Club and from my research group, which we basically put low caps into all day because we're always trading this stuff, we're going to pick the best one of the day and we're going to share it on the show. Now, these coins aren't necessarily going to be the coins I have bought. Obviously, some of them I would have bought, but there are also ones that I like that maybe I haven't positioned into for whatever reason. That doesn't matter. I'm just going to curate a coin that I think is interesting and fresh, and there's going to be a new one every day. Maybe occasionally there'll be overlap, but I'm going to try and bring you fresh alpha every day. So it's going to be called Gem of the Day, and it's going to be towards the end of each show. And I'm going to be spotlighting a gem that I've found in the market or my research team has found and I've researched that looks interesting. Clearly, there's going to be some lower cap stuff. Clearly, sometimes I'm not going to own the token. Sometimes I will. I'll disclose if I do. And obviously, these coins will be riskier. But for the degens, if you do stick around to the end, you're going to get some alpha. Now, I'm not saying they're guaranteed to pump. Obviously, they're risky. Some could rug. Some could go to zero. That's not what this series is about. This series is just about giving you some interesting alpha. So it could be from robotics, RWA, any low caps we find and think that's an interesting narrative. I'll explain it on the show and you can research it in your own time. But it's going to be a cool new series to kick off alongside the comment of the day. So remember, comment, because tomorrow, if I pick your comment and answer it on the show, you're going to get $500 and you'll need to watch tomorrow's video so you can post your wallet if you have one. And yeah, obviously subscribe to the channel so you don't miss tomorrow's video. Very, very excited for this next week or two of content. We got some cool stuff planned. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for hanging out today. Peace.